Hello and welcome back. In this short lecture, we will be learning about Azure Resource Manager, which is one of the very important tool within Azure. Azure Resource Manager, sometimes we also call as ARM or ARM in short sometime. So do not confuse that if somebody calling as ARM or ARM, like A stands here Azure and R stands here Resource and Manager ARM. So most of the time the Microsoft documentation also refer as ARM instead of full name. So I just gave the title as also Azure Resource Manager, but most of the time we call as ARM. So what exactly this ARM or Azure Resource Manager? Well, one thing that it makes it very important of the services within Azure is it's a single centralized service that can be used for both managing and deploying our complete assets within the Microsoft Azure. So that's made us completely very critical for within the Azure services, because you see here Azure Resource Manager is the middle and which can communicate with your identity management solutions. It can be ADFS or Azure AD, and it can actually it can be communicated with one of the APIs like Microsoft Azure Portal, or it can be from Azure CLI, or even the developers can start creating their Azure services directly from Visual Studio. So what would happen is they interact with this Azure Resource Manager in the form of either writing a code in a right format. In fact, it can be a JSON format by declaring those values and properties, and then they would start creating the required Azure services. So not just that creating, they can create as a template, and that template can be reused again and again. So that's all about at the high level of this design side. Let's jump into the complete explanation of ARM or ARM. So what exactly is this? So let's dig into this a little bit more. When we talk about managing our own assets, we are talking about how Azure Resource Manager let us create and update and delete resources, including the ability to do within the ARM templates. So there's a template that can be called as the Azure template or ARM templates, and right way would be the ARM templates. So you create a resource that can be converted into ARM template so that it can be reused later point. Let's say you created with all your configuration a specific service, and you wanted to reuse the similar settings to create in no time, then you simply have to use that ARM template to redeploy again and again whatever the services you wanted. So it's so easy. Now, in addition to managing our resources like we just went over, the Azure Resource Manager also can deploy our resources, which is really cool. It combines both the services management and development and deployment all inside the same API. And what you mean by deploying our resources is once we have configured everything that we have, let's say we have a virtual machine. Once we have configured that, then the next step is to deploy it, which will actually start up the virtual machine and host it on a server somewhere. The same for the app service plan, which is to host a web app. Once we have configured that and pointed to our application code when we deploy it, that's when our website actually becomes public and everyone can see it. And so having this ability to do both create, update, manage your resources, as well as to deploy them, to take them offline when we need it for maybe a maintenance, makes the Azure Resource Manager again your single kind of centralized part for doing all the administration and management activities you need overall for your Azure resources. So now another cool thing would be with the management side. Since when we are trying to deploy with the Azure Resource Manager, we can also add up how the access controls should be done, and auditing and tagging of our resources, so that it enables us to secure it and organize our resources after they deployed it. With access control, for example, when we say access control, we can set policies so that only certain users of maybe a certain users of in a group that can actually create resources, for example deleting resources, such things can be applied. And with auditing, we have the ability to go back and check logs to see which user actually created or updated or maybe deleted, for that case, of any of those resources, or maybe deployed that specific resource. And with the tagging, we can apply tags to resources across resource groups and resources, so that we can later search by tags and we can see all of the resources being used throughout our organizations based on what we have tagged with them. Just to give you more about the taggings commonly used for the department codes or within your business, especially on the name of, for example, let me show you here in the any of the resources you can give here as the tags, maybe for this resource group which I'm talking. Maybe if I want just for the VM, or maybe for a VM, I can give here tags to that specific business unit code, or maybe a cost center code that can be given, so that I know I can easily keep track of my billing centers, which resources are being used. And also, let's take a step back, and we have talked about the management and deployment aspects of Azure Resource Manager. With the management side, we can both actually create and delete our resources, as well as the effect access control, auditing and tagging across the resources. And we have looked at how we can deploy resources, as well as even take them offline when we need maintenance, all through the same single API that's called Azure Resource Manager, or ARM. Now, we also touched briefly on the fact that we can use templates. So let's have a look on what exactly I'm talking about templates. Let's say this resource, maybe let's take the one of the VM here, and you see here this VM is already got created, but this also have a template format. You see here, this is the JSON format template which is already available for me. So if I wanted to deploy similar one, I can straightforward go ahead and start deploying. So what would happen is the same kind of resource which is gonna create for me. So I no need to again input similar values. Let's say to understand about more, like resource is about virtual machine, type is, so that means it's going to deploy a virtual machine. So similarly, if I try to deploy a website example, this is also same case with the web app. You can check out here web app. This is also getting deployed similar to the website default value. So such things can be deployed automatically. So every resource that we have within the Microsoft Azure portal, that will have its own ARM template, definitely, because that's a middle one, that's the interactive one which we wanted to do it. So that's why we said it's a single centralized service that we can use for both managing and deploying our assets. So it's all about the managing and deploying. So everything will have a template. Let's talk on that templates or ARM templates. That's a big topic, this is actually, and we will look into it in the upcoming lectures. But just to understand at high level, to talk on this specific topic within this course, I'm going to give you all the inputs that are required for this exam. Now, you have here GitHub website, which is a quick start templates. For example, you want to create maybe a single VM with the 2 network cards, or a blank VM. Such things, everything is available here. You can visualize how the thing's gonna deploy. So let's see, this is going to be, if I just zoom it, you might easy to understand. It's going to create a network security group. It's going to ask for some of the variables for the public IP, NIC2 and NIC1, both connected to one of the virtual machine, and this is a storage account, this is a virtual machine. So this is how it's going to deploy. So if I just go back to the previous designer, that's a bug actually, I can't go, but if I just go to GitHub once again, just search as the Azure template in GitHub. That takes all these templates which are available 101 templates. So here, take any of the template. Let's take 1 VM and 2 NICs. So we did visualize that, and if you want to deploy straightforward, you can do it from here. But let's talk and let's understand what exactly this ARM templates. So ARM templates are a format which is in a JSON format. Let's have a look on it. So Azure deploy JSON file. So if I just click on this JSON file, this talks about all the structure format, which is a simple input format file. So let's take it also have, if you see here, it also have the raw format. So this talks about very clear view if you're trying to understand like properties of the IP configuration and the variables for the NIC2. Like this is the type of the network card. If you want to create a network card, it goes to Microsoft.network/network interface. Now, so these are the templates which are quickly available for us to understand, and you also have the parameters JSON file. So all you have to do is you have to just give the parameters to be passed, like username and the password, and the rest of the things are already available within this template. That's what we are going to use for the Azure Quick Start template, ARM template that can be deployed. So now let's go back to Microsoft documentation. What we are actually trying to look at here is, like, if you just go to the quick start to create a Azure ARM templates by using Azure portal. So let's try to create one of these storage account with this format. So what would happen is you can check out this the template which is coming up here. So let's talk on this specific template for a minute to understand what's going to happen. So here it's going to asking for us to select the resource group. So the resource group is the group which we learned in the previously to as a container, and now the location which it needs as a parameter. You see here it's going to actually ask only these parameters. Later point it's going to deploy. That means when you click on the purchase, it's ready for deployment. After all of these explanation, you should be able to understand the benefits of using Azure resources, because we talked about the repeatedly using all such things. So let's take a close look what Microsoft site says. So if I just scroll down to Microsoft overview page for Azure Resource Manager Overview, you have all the benefits listed here. Let's have a look on it. So what we can do is we can repeatedly deploy our applications and solutions, and know that our resources are always deployed in the same consistent way or consistent state altogether. So you're not making any manual errors since you are following a ARM template, because the template will ask only for the declarative values, as we had a look on here. For example, here it's going to just ask for those values only all the time. You see here it's just selecting, for example, you don't want the central years to be taken by the end users, so that has to be grayed out. So simply we will hard code that value into our template, so that every machine or every resource that is going to deploy it, it's going to be in a standard location called central US. So that way it would be beneficial for us. So let's also think about like you're trying to deploy a app service plan or maybe a SQL database or other things like that definitely follow it's a template method that would actually result ongoing things which is going to happen each time, and makes us helpful if we have multiple environments that we might start with a dev environment, make our templates ready, similarly deploy our resources maybe, and then edit our templates until our environment is the way that we want it or that way we need it, and then we can move move it to our applications becomes more stable, then we can move it to, or we can push it to second environment like testing or pre-production, something like that. So think about in that direction, which would definitely help you to bring more value for your management and ease of deployment. This really helps. The way we want our environment is set to exactly the same way uh, every single time, and it makes it really great for us for situations like that where you have multiple environments and you don't want to do any manual work every time to deploy or set up a new environment. So when we use the template in this way, we are using declarative of approach, and declarative means that we are telling the service how we wanted our infrastructure to end up after templates have already run, rather than going through a set of steps each time to configure our environment in the same way. Rather than using the scripts and kind of a procedural approach, these templates let us work with the declarative approach to determining how we want our infrastructure to end up after deployment. And the cool part about the template is that we can even define dependencies between our resources so they are deployed in the right order, which is really cool for us to save, and it saves a lot of time for us as an administrator. We might to see that certain resources need to be deployed after another resource, and we can make it so in our templates, and Azure Resource Manager will deploy our resources in the correct order. Let us take a look at Let's take a look at our overview of creating a template. You can see here, so this template is talking about unique things here, like storage account name, as well as the parameters, resources, all those things. So when we actually downloaded this specific template, it's going to actually talk about the similar structure. So within this file, the structure is a JSON format, and you see here within this you have the following values, especially the resource group and location, account type. All these things has been already prompting. For example, if you see here the location, which is actually coming up, account type and kind and access style, supports HTTPS traffic only. All this is a value which is actually a variable value which is asking us to enter as the input. If at all, if you wanted to go for a hard coding, for example, here a storage account name you want in a hard code, you can put it here so that it's gonna make it as the not the variable, so it's going to be a hard coded the value. But remember that the storage account is a unique thing, so you make sure that you have that name is not taken by anybody. Similarly, if you're trying to create, since we're talking about the storage account here, the storage account, to create that, what we do is the type under resource we are going to create as a type as the storage account from the Microsoft.storage. So for every type of resource will have a different values to be entered here. For example, here in this case it's just for the storage. So let's have a look on it for another resource. For example, with this specific to the JSON file, again you see here the variable and the resource. You see here the resource type is compute. Under that it's going to actually create a virtual machine. So this is the type you're going to do it. So these things are more flexible when we wanted to edit or we wanted to set it. For example, here it's starting this IP address suffix. Instead, you want to change it, you just have to change a little bit. That would actually go and becomes as a one standard. Or you see here, if I use this template all the time, I'm going to get it the same address prefix that makes my subnet 2 as a standard. So I don't need to input or do any kind of manual mistake with human mistakes when we try to input the data. So that really helps the and gives the more flexibility for us to create anytime with the templates. Once you have the template is ready, all you have to do is you just use the same template. So as I explained earlier, you can use the same template, like you can download this template like this, and simply use the template to redeploy. For example, if I want to deploy, you can, all you have to do is deploy, and you can also add it to your library so that you can reuse later point from the library. So that makes very easy for us. To summarize about Azure Resource Manager, it actually provides us a single consistent API and service to use. It internally will call out all the Azure thousands of hundreds of various different Microsoft Azure resources to provider and providers in order to affect our changes on actual Azure products and services that we are using. I hope this is useful for you to better understand about Microsoft Azure Resource Manager, or ARM in short, sometimes we refer as ARM, and how this is going to be a centralized service, and how both we can use and deploy for Azure resources. Thank you for watching this. I'll be seeing you in the next lesson.